This morning we have a tragic incident that we'd like to share with the public where one of our motor vehicles, a motor vehicle accident occurred this morning at approximately 2:30 in the morning at Route 31 and 250 in the town of Perrington, involving one of our deputies that was on routine patrol who struck a pedestrian. Unfortunately, the pedestrian lost his life. Chief Deputy will share much more details on our investigation, how it's going up to this point, and what's going to occur in the next 24 or 48 hours. But we do want to express our condolences to the family. We want to express our sincere condolences to their loss, and we also want to express our thoughts about the deputy who's going through a very tragic event right now. And we're working with all those people as we speak right now. So many details to come out in the next few hours. We appreciate your patience on that, but we do want to show our empathy and sincere sympathy for what occurred here. It's a true tragic incident that occurred today in the town of Perrington. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Chief Deputy Michael Fowler, who will share the details of the investigation, where we're at, and what we have planned for the next 24 or 48 hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. As the Sheriff mentioned, the incident took place about 2:33 this morning on Route 31 at the intersection of 250. One of our deputies, an on-duty deputy that was assigned to the town of Perrington, was operating a marked patrol vehicle. He was westbound on Route 31, crossing that intersection when the deputy's attention became drawn to a suspicious vehicle that was parked at the Chase Bank at that intersection. As the deputy was looking at the vehicle, unfortunately he struck a pedestrian who was crossing Route 31. The pedestrian was a 32-year-old male from the town of Perrington. The deputy stopped his vehicle immediately, activated his body-worn camera while he was in the driver's seat of the vehicle, got out and ran to provide assistance and try to assess the individual's injuries. The deputy did initiate CPR and requested an ambulance in an emergency status. Several other police officers responded to assist, including the Fairport Police Department. And Perrington Volunteer Ambulance Corps responded and took over the life-saving measures and transported the pedestrian to Strong Memorial Hospital, where unfortunately he succumbed to his injuries. The hospital assisted us in making initial notifies to the family. That has begun, but we understand there's more to do with that. We'll be working on that and trying to assist in completing that process. We immediately activated our chain of command. We called in our major crimes investigators, our accident reconstructionist, and our evidence technicians to respond to the scene and start processing that scene. They have been working since that time early this morning and are relocating their process now down to our offices and out to our fleet garage, where they'll be continuing their process of handling the evidence and trying to determine what took place in this accident. We also have made our notifies to the Attorney General's office. They have sent out an investigative team to the scene. We will be conducting separate but cooperative investigations through this process. So we are sharing information, we're working together on processing the evidence, but technically the investigations are separate. That will continue for some time. It will take some effort and time to process through the black box from the vehicle, to process through our computer software that we have in our mobile data terminals that are in the vehicles, and to be able to try to piece together exactly what happened. We have several questions that we need answers to that we'll be working through the evidence process to get those. We do not have all the specifics as to where exactly the pedestrian was and things like the traffic signal and all that sort of stuff that we definitely will be getting answers to, but we do not have them all yet, so I won't be able to answer those types of questions. But We will continue this process. As I stated, our accident reconstruction team was out there all night. They continue that process. It takes several days for them to do their math and their formulas and be able to put together what they believe happened, to include the speed and things like that. As part of our normal process in this, we have conducted a pre-screen of the deputy. This is the process of determining if there's any evidence of blood alcohol on their breath. This is done at the scene of an accident as opposed to what would be done at the hospital. And those results were zero, absolutely no indication of any alcohol involvement or anything else. At this point, we're focusing on this as a terrible and unfortunate accident, but we are going to let the investigative process play out. We're going to be completely thorough with it, and we're going to be cooperating with the Attorney General's office. We also are going to be completely transparent with the family. We're going to remain in contact with them to the extent that they're comfortable with, and we're going to share all the information as our investigation develops and we start to uncover the facts of what took place. We are also, we have done an initial review of some of the body camera. It takes a while to download, and we have several deputies that were on scene. We'll be downloading all the body camera footage. We've got an initial look at that, and it's very clear that the deputy is also very shaken up. And so we've started our process to help the deputy and the deputy's family through that, and try to minimize any long-standing concern for that. This is, as the sheriff mentioned, this is terrible. There's nothing good out of this, and our heart goes out to the family, also to the deputy. There are several lives that are just upended today, and we're going to continue to work with them, and we're going to continue to work with the family, and we're going to be as transparent as possible as we go through this process. I'll take any questions that you have. Don't be surprised. It's very early on in the investigation, so I don't have a lot of specifics, but I'll take whatever questions you have.
Chief Deputy, have you spoken to the victim's family, and what have they kind of expressed to you?
Yes, our command staff has spoken to some members of the family. Again, the family's not been able to contact everyone yet, so they're going through that process. But clearly, you can imagine exactly how they would be. It's just probably their most terrible day, and we're trying to get through it, and we're trying to help them as much as possible. We have asked for resources to help the family, and we're working through that process now.
Do you know how fast the deputy was going?
We do not have an accurate speed estimate at this point. We have the ability to get it, but it takes a little while to get that. We'll have to download the black box, and there are certain technicians that are able to do that, and they'll be working on that today.
What more info can you tell us about the Chase Bank suspicious vehicle?
So we are, that is going to be part of our follow-up investigation. We have that on body-worn camera, the vehicle at the bank. But obviously the attention was drawn to the pedestrian immediately, and that became the priority. So we will have to follow up as to what that suspicious vehicle ended up being.
How long has this deputy served with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office?
We're going to wait to talk about, to release identifying information for the pedestrian and the deputy for at least 24 hours to allow them to prepare themselves for the questions and get their family prepared for those sort of things. So we'll talk about that at our follow-up, which more than likely will be about 24 hours from now.
Will the body-worn camera ever be released?
At this point, I would imagine we would, yes. It'll have to be redacted for certain portions, but yeah, I think there's it would be appropriate to release that fairly shortly here. However, We do have to work with the Attorney General because they have responsibility for that also, so it would have to be a joint release.
Has the Sheriff's Office or anybody from the Attorney General's office viewed that body camera video yet?
We do have an initial command staff review. I have actually reviewed the first critical minutes of that video, so I do have an understanding of what that scene looked like, and clearly the injuries to the pedestrian and the emotional impact to the deputy, yes.
Even, if the investigation comes out as completely an accident, what does the consequences or any disciplinary action that may happen, or what does that look like?
Well, first off, it's way too soon to talk about disciplinary action. All indications at this point are that it's an accident. However, we're not going to make a determination until we go through this investigative process. The Attorney General actually owns the ultimate determination on the status of the case, so we will wait until the Attorney General is ready to make a determination on that before we jointly release the results. At this point, our focus is on the well-being of the deputy's family, as well certainly as the pedestrian's family.
Can you go over the investigation? So there's the Attorney General's, and then you're doing an investigation within your own.
Yep, that's correct. We're clearly doing our thorough accident reconstruction in our investigation. I mentioned that we brought in our major crimes unit. That's because they're our most experienced investigative unit. We are addressing it as if it were a major crime, because a month from now we may not be able to go back and redo it. So even though we believe it to be an accident, we're using that method to do it now so that we're as thorough as possible.
How do you talk about an investigation into your own, people?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
It's tough. We have to ask them pointed questions that are difficult questions. They are entitled to their legal representation just like everyone else is. So we go through that process. The good part about that is that they understand that. The deputies understand that they will be asked pointed questions. There's going to be a thorough investigation. And they know that, even if they did nothing improper or against our policy, that it's going to be a very difficult time. I can tell you that in this case, the deputy is not concerned about our investigation or our internal discipline process. The deputy is still trying to process the fact that somebody lost their life. We've been speaking to him all morning, and that's his only concern.
I want to confirm the victim's age was 32 years old?
32. Don't quote me because I don't know what month, but about 32 years old.
Okay,
Yeah.
I misheard that.
And we're,
Just one thing, is the deputy involved on paid leave? Will he be put on paid leave?
So we have a policy that they're going to be on administrative assignment. That is more for the deputy's well-being. As I stated, as of yet, we have not identified a crime. We haven't identified a violation of policy. We're still looking into that, but for the deputy's well-being, we can't send him back out to work tonight. That's just not the appropriate thing to do. That's not taking care of your people.
so we're still, or I guess the investigation is still trying to figure out whether the person was crossing the street or.
Well, the pedestrian was definitely crossing the street, but from what we can tell and from what the deputy has told us, there was no warning, watching the body-worn camera, things like that. So we don't exactly know what direction the pedestrian was headed, but we know he was crossing Route 31 on the west side of the intersection.
For as long as you've been in this position, have you seen incidents like this where a patrol has,
Oh, yeah.
terrible tragedy like this?
Yeah, there's nothing good here, nothing good at all. A gentleman lost his life, and a deputy's going to have to live with that.
And you
Right.
seem pretty shaken up yourself right now.
Well, I'm a little more shaken up. It's tough watching them go through this, right? You watch the body-worn camera, and you can't help but think about this 32-year-old gentleman that lost his life.
Just take us through, just very quickly, I know you've been up here a while, but just take us through what the next steps in this investigation are going to be.
Yeah, so we have to meet with and interview each deputy that responded. They each played a role in the post-crash investigation. So our major crimes unit will be meeting with them to get their complete statements, to start compiling all of that data. The evidence technicians have a lot of work to do. We have taken the vehicle, the patrol vehicle, and it is being held as evidence. As I stated, we'll be going through the black box. We'll be examining the damage to the vehicle, the location. They'll be studying the damage to try to determine a speed. We'll combine that with the data we get from the black box. We also have what's called an automated vehicle locator, which is a software that goes on our police data terminals that will help estimate that speed also, and direction of travel, all that sort of stuff. So they'll be working to download that data, they'll be assessing it, evaluating it. It's just like almost a math student sitting in the room and drawing their diagrams and doing their formulas and all that sort of stuff. And then they send it out for a review. So they get a peer review on the work that they do on this accident reconstruction. So all of that takes a while. And then of course you sit down with the investigators and the attorneys, and they all share information and come up with an opinion.
Just really very quickly, can you just give us a brief recap of the accident itself?
So as I stated, about 2:30 in the morning in the town of Perrington, at the intersection of Route 31 and 250, a on-duty deputy operating a marked patrol vehicle was westbound on Route 31. He was not responding to a call, but he was addressing what he just observed as a suspicious vehicle parked at the Chase Bank at that intersection when he struck a pedestrian that was crossing Route 31. The deputy immediately stopped, activated his body-worn camera, and approached the individual to try to offer assistance, assess the injuries, and requested assistance. He asked for Perrington volunteer ambulance to respond, got on his radio, asked for help. Several other deputies in the Fairport Police Department responded to help. He got on the radio again and asked for the ambulance to expedite their response. And when the ambulance arrived, the deputies were performing CPR, and Perrington ambulance transported the pedestrian to Strong Hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries.
And then were there any witnesses, non-law enforcement witnesses, or was the victim alone?
The victim was alone, and we have not yet identified any witnesses. We did try. We're also in the process of sending investigators to all the local businesses and the homes to see if anybody has any camera footage, anything like that, as well as following up on that suspicious vehicle at the bank. But that clearly is not our priority at the moment.
I know you talked to the family already to notify. Did they have an idea where he was going?
Yeah, so it was the wrong time to ask those sorts of questions. It clearly is something we need to address quickly, but you can't ask those questions at that time. It's just not appropriate. Any other questions?
Last thing I promise for me, will there be, and I gotta ask it, will there be a talk screen of any kind done on the victim?
So we don't get involved in that. That is the process of the medical examiner. They have an entire process that they follow, and then they will call us if they find anything of concern. And at that point, our investigators will go out and meet with the medical examiner investigators, with the medical examiner that does the autopsy, and they'll make a determination based on that.
Thank you, Chief Deputy.
Thank
Okay,
you so much.
thank you.
Do you guys have any more updates? Where they're going to come from? Press
Bill,
release?
we'll do a written notice to let you know, but again, we won't have anything before 24 hours when we start to identify whether or not we're prepared to release those names for the family's sake.
I do have an off-topic question, if we can answer that really quick about the TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
You guys all want to get in on this?
Yeah, it'd probably
Yeah,
be.
I don't know if it's.
The TikTok
still
videos?
going live,
Yeah.
But yeah, can you?
Yep, I can address that. So we were notified early yesterday of a trend that's going on across the nation of some alarming TikTok videos that are threatening for today's school day. All sorts of types of threats of shooting and explosive devices, things like that. We reached out to our investigators. We reached out to our Crime Analysis Center. We also reached out to the FBI and even the Joint Terrorism Task Force trying to make sure that we cross our T's, dot our I's, all that to follow up on these. At this point, we have no information that leads us to believe that there's any credibility to this threat. It appears to be childish pranks that have been continuing for, we've seen an awful lot of that this year. I mentioned all those agencies that are involved in this review. We're all under the same impression that there is just no credibility, and especially locally. However, we would be negligent if we didn't address it. So we have today arranged for special attention to all the schools. We've been talking to the school administrations. We have a few schools that, just out of the sense of precaution, have asked us to park some cars there and have deputies there for drop-off. However, it's only just in case. We have no information to lead us to believe there's any credibility, especially locally.
Can you explain what the exact threat is?
Freedom of speech doesn't cover hate speech or threats of violence. At what point does this turn criminal? At what point do we have to does law enforcement need to step in?
Well, first of all, identifying where the source comes from, right? Where is that source? This is a nationwide issue right now. So the FBI will work with us predominantly on that. If we could identify a local source, then yes, we absolutely would look further. We consult with our, with the district attorney. We consult with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we'd look to see what's the most appropriate response to this. I tell you what, it's happening a lot, right? And it's draining resources. It's causing alarm for the families, for the students, for the schools. So if we have an opportunity to track it down and try and take some corrective action, then whether it's counseling, whether it's mental health support, whatever it may be, that's what we're going to do.
Is there any talks within just law enforcement in general on how to curb this?
Yeah. I wish. If you have any answers, please help us, because it's most of our issues now seem to be with younger people, right? And I wish we had answers. We really need some help on trying to figure out how to address this, because it's just growing and growing. And of course, the social media and the attention that it gets helps spread the issue, right? That's most of the time we look at this and they're looking for attention, and they're getting it. So we're feeding that desire to cause alarm. It's part of the things we have to take into consideration.
Can you just go over what the exact threat was?
I can't really. I don't want to try to quote that. Honestly, there's so many of them that come around that I don't want to try to quote.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So